Let's now talk about one of the biggest additions to ES6, and that is classes. Now, classes actually don't add anything new to the language. They're just synthetic sugar over the way we do prototypal inheritance in JavaScript. And that means that classes simply make it easier to implement inheritance and to create objects based on blueprints. So in ES5, these blueprints are called function constructors, right? And we added methods to their prototype properties in order to make all the instances created through a function constructor inherit these methods. So let's start by doing that now, and then write the same code with ES6 classes after that. So ES5, and I'm going to create a person function constructor. So the one that we already know very well. So person5, because of ES5, is a function which accepts the name, a year of birth, and also a job. Okay, and I'm writing it as a function expression here, okay, but I could also equally have written it as a function declaration, so it works the exact same way. So all of this is nothing new. Okay, so this dot year of birth is year of birth, of course, and finally the job is a job that we input. All right. And now to make all the instances inherit a calculate_age method, it's as easy as adding it to the prototype property of the function constructor, right? So all of this is nothing new, but so here we can practice it a little bit more, okay? So the age is, and let's actually create a new date here so that we are always up to date with the year. So get full year minus the year of birth. And let's then simple log this to the console. So very simple stuff. And just to test it, John 5 is a new person called John, born in 1990, and let's say that he's a teacher. Okay, so this is the way that we used to do it in ES5. Let's now do the exact same thing, but using ES6 classes, so that you can see the big difference. And so we use the class keyword, and then we simply say the name of the class, which is similar to the name of the function constructor that we used before. So this should be called person, and I'm going to call it person6 here. And that's it. So it looks a bit like a function declaration, right? But this is actually a class declaration. And the way that a class declaration works is that all classes have to have the constructor method. Okay, so we have to write constructor. And this is where we define the initial properties that we want in our object. So again, it's going to be, of course, name, year of birth, and the job. And then this looks like just a regular function. And what we then do here is the exact same thing as we did before. So we have to say this name is equal to the name that we pass in. This dot year of birth should be year of birth, which is the one that we pass in here. And of course the same with the job. Okay, so again, this part here, the constructor part, which every class declaration has to have, is very similar to this part here of the function constructor. Now, if you want to add a method to this, we simply do it also here in the class. So all we have to do now is to say calculate age. And that's it. Now we can add our code in here. So there's no function keyword here, no prototype like we had to do here. No, all we do here is to simply add this new method right to our class. And note that we don't have any separating punctuation here. Okay, so no commas or no semicolons like in objects, for example. In here, in the class definition, we don't need anything like that. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the code from the calculateAge method there to here, because everything is going to work the same. And that's it. So this class here is now effectively the exact same thing as this, but it's nicely structured here into this entire class, and it looks a bit better and is also easier to write. And so that's why we say that it's syntactic sugar. And let's now create an instance of this class, and I'm going to make it a constant. So John 6 is a new person 6 called John, also born in 1990, and he is also a teacher. And what I want to do now is to actually show you in the console that these two things are the exact same thing. So let's take a look at them here in the console. So John 5 and John 6. And let me open them. And here we see that they actually look the exact same, right? So all of these are the same. The prototype is still the object. And in here, we inherit the calculateAge method that we defined up here. Okay. And then in here in the prototype, we also have the calculateAge method, which is of course this one here. So writing it like this is under the hood of JavaScript, behind the scenes, converted to the exact same thing as we wrote in the old way. So again, this is just syntactic sugar, which makes it easier to write classes than it was before. And actually, there are some people criticizing classes because they basically hide the object-oriented nature of inheritance in JavaScript. And so some beginners who don't learn about that, they may never really understand how inheritance works behind the scenes in JavaScript. But you do understand it, right? And so you're 100% ready to start using ES6 classes. Now, another thing that we can do with classes is to add static methods. And static methods are methods that are simply attached to the class, but not inherited by the class instances. So by objects that we create through that class. So I actually think that this isn't really helpful, but I still wanted to show it to you. So let's say that we want to add a static class here, simply called greeting. And all we do is to log something to the console. Let's say, hey there. So we can use this like as helper functions. So in order to use this, we cannot use it on John because it's a static method. And as I said, these instances are not going to inherit it. And so all we can do is to call it like this. So person5 dot greeting. So it's basically a method that is attached to this class definition. And this class definition is under the hood, behind the scenes, a function definition. And so it's also an object, as you already know. And so we know that we can attach methods to an object. And so that's simply what we're doing here. So if we now reload this, we get this error here, and that's simply because I misspelled it. But now, of course, it works with our hey there string logged to the console. So again, that part I think is not really useful, but we can still use it if we want. All right, so that's it for the fundamentals of ES6 classes. Just two more things that I need to say here. And first, class definitions are not hoisted. So unlike function constructors, we need to first implement a class, and only later in our code we can start using it. So this is a very important thing to keep in mind. And second, we can only add methods to classes, but not properties. But that's not a problem at all, because inheriting properties to the object instances is not a best practice anyway. And so that's why this rule is now really enforced here in classes. Okay, so in the next lecture, we will see how to implement inheritance from one class to another. And that's a very cool topic, so don't wait and move right to the next lecture.